Good morning, students. I am Sarkar, Assistant Professor of Siliguri B.Ed College and Siliguri Primary Teachers Training College. Today, I will discuss about D.Ed English, Part 1, Unit 1, Language and Acquisition. First of all, we have to know what is language learning. Learning is a process of acquiring new skills or knowledge and improving the existence skill also. An individual undergoes a change in his or her knowledge and behavior on account of learning. Everyone is different from one another in acquiring skills, means everyone has different rate or speed of learning. Certain factors such as environment, learners, ability and motivation, teachers' capability and way of imparting knowledge all impact a person's learning experience. Next, we move on. Type of learning. There are three types of learning. Number 1, motor learning. Number 2, verbal learning. Number 3, conceptual learning. Now, what is motor learning? Most of our activity in day-to-day life refers to motor activity. That is walking, running, driving, climbing, etc. All these activities involve muscular coordination. Now, we move on. Verbal learning. What is verbal learning? This type of learning involves in the language we speak, the communication method we adopt, that is sign, picture, symbol, words, sound, etc. are tools used in such activities. Now, what is conceptual learning? In this form of learning, we require higher order mental process like thinking, reasoning, intelligence. With the use of this, child learned the different concept. Now, we move on. What is the factor of affecting learning? There are certain factors affecting learning of individual. These factors can divide into three categories. Number 1, factor related to learners. Number 2, factor related to the teachers. Number 3, factor related to environment, teaching, materials and human resource. Now, what is factor related learners? Number 1, learners' motivation determines the intensity of learning. Number 2, learners' efficiency or mental capacity. Number 3, learners' interest and aptitude towards the subject. Number 4, learners' general health. Number 5, learners' attention and readiness and willpower. Next, we move on. Factor related to teacher. Number 1, teacher command over subject. Number 2, the way of communication. Number 3, teacher's personality and attitude towards learners. Number 4, teacher's behavior with the students. Next point, factor related to environment, teaching material and human resources. In this section, we have to know the factor related to environment, teaching materials and human resource. Number 1, conducive environment to learning. Number 2, structure and size of classroom. Number 3, availability of appropriate subject material to facilitate the learning process, and number 4, home environment of the learners. Now we have to discuss the what is acquisition. When we learn naturally and without any systematic practice, it is called acquisition. The term learning and acquisition are complementary. Learners acquire language when it is used naturally or natural environment. Next, what is language acquisition? The language acquisition is a process by which humans acquire the capacity to perceive, produce and use words to understand and communicate. This capacity involves the picking up the diverse capacities including syntax, phonetics and extensive vocabulary. This language might be vocal as with the speech or manual is in sign. Then language acquisition is refers to the first language acquisition, which studied infant acquisition of their native language rather than second language acquisition in both children and adults of additional language. The capacity to acquire and use language in the key aspects that distinguish human from other organisms. While many forms of animal communicate exist, they have limited range of non-syntactical structure vocabulary, token that lack cross-culture variation between the groups. Now we will move on. What is the difference between language acquisition and language learning? The difference between language acquisition and language learning lies in the fact, whereas on one hand language acquisition is done naturally, unconsciously and painlessly. In the otherwise, language learning is done consciously and painfully. According to Stephen Krashen, America's premier second language learning theorist, there is a critical period for language acquisition which extends from birth to the age of 10 or 12. This means that if a child is introduced to a new language, that child will be able to acquire the second language as long as he interacts with the speaker of the language on daily basis. If, on the other hand, a child is introduced to a new or second language after the age of 12, that is after the critical period of language acquisition, that child will not able to do so to speak, to acquire the second language. Accordingly, that child will have to undergo the strenuous and painful way of learning the second language. Next, it is the specific reason that children within the critical period of language acquisition are able to acquire a new or second language. Adults, on the other hand, who have the long past critical age for learning acquisition, have to undergo the hardship and pain to actually learn the language acquisition. Second language learning is called ESL, English. The full form of ESL is English as second language, or ENL, English as a new language. Learning English as a foreign language is called EFL, English as a foreign language. A child who learned the English as a new or second language is called ELL, English language learner. In sum, the language acquisition and language learning are two different linguistic tracks. as we have seen, whereas language acquisition comes naturally, language learning entails a lot of pain and hard work. Linguistic pain and hard work. This much for today. Thank you.